Greetings, I'm the one called Horror Show, and welcome to VG Therapy, the channel where I talk about games. Now, I never had a Super Nintendo as a kid, I was a bit too young for that. Although I did know someone who had one, but I have very few memories of that. And so, when I started collecting, one of the first things I got was a Super Nintendo and a copy of Illusion of Time. A game that I did spend a lot of time playing when I first got it. However, my save battery died, which, long story short, means my save got deleted. And I didn't want to start again because I put so much time into it, and also it was going to be a bit of a pain to get that fixed. I just decided not to play it. However, I have since remedied that problem, and have decided to finally play through it.
The game was developed by Quintet, a company that seemed to have mostly developed RPGs and games for the Super Nintendo. These games include ActRaiser, Soul Blazer, Terranigma, and Grand Stream Saga while acting under the name of Shade.
Because of reasons that would take me far too long to explain, and I don't really understand, the long and short of it is that Quintet is Shade.
The game was produced and published by Enix, a company that needs no introduction, but they only published it in Japan on the 27th of November in 1993. Nintendo was in charge of publishing the game in the rest of the world, releasing the game in North America on the 1st of September 1994, and to the rest of the world on the 27th of April 1995.
Now, I don't know why the American and Japanese versions refer to Gaia in the title, but the PAL version refers to time. The answer to that question is probably in the story. I wouldn't know. I have beaten the game, but the last half to a third of the game, I kind of dropped off. Like, I'm not sure if that's because the game just stops being interesting at that point, or because me taking a couple of days between sessions kind of takes you out of a story-heavy game. Because, if that's the case, then, well, yeah, I'm going to cop that, you know? That's my fault for not paying attention. But, yeah, I don't really remember why there's any distinction between Gaia and time. There's a few elements in this game that kind of mention time, but nothing that major from what I can remember. Gaia is a lot more present. But, yeah, like I said, I don't really remember. I don't really know. But what I do remember of the story is as follows.
The story begins by telling you that the game is set in the age of exploration and many discoveries were being made, but certain discoveries, namely the Tower of Babel, were leading to the discovery of death. And someone in one of these adventuring groups decided that, you know what's a smart idea? I'ma bring me kid along to this death trap, it'll be fine. It was not fine. The adventuring party was never seen again, and the kid somehow got home and just kinda dealt with it. Although he now has telekinesis, which is kinda cool. Although I'm not sure why he has to spin his flute around to activate it, like it's shown that you don't need to spin it later on, so I don't know why he does it here. That flute is not just for show either, it actually acts as your weapon. I've seen some strange choices for weapons in other games, but I can't say that I've seen a flute being used as a physical weapon. There is probably a good reason I don't see it being used as a weapon much, it's probably because it's not good. But fear not, you're not stuck with the flute for the entirety of the game. You see, after class one day, your main character, Will, goes up to the roof and sees a magical doorway. Inside is the face of Gaia. There she tells you that you are the chosen one and that she'll help you on your journey. And when you get to the first dungeon, she gives you the power to transform into this fabulous Joker. And since he's a knight, he uses a sword, which deals more damage than your piddly little flute. There is one more form where you play as Glacius, but he comes in at basically the end of the game, so you don't get to spend too much time with him. You honestly don't get much time with the knight either, that's because you can only play as them in dungeons and nowhere else. And this game has a lot of else. There's a lot of plot in this game, some of it is like the scene where you and your love interest spent almost a month drifting at sea, and you just see them talk to each other and fish in the only way the game could let you. Then there's stuff that I'm surprised got in this game, like people telling you that the slaves you're looking at are around the same age as you, or playing Russian roulette with a man where instead of a gun and one bullet it's 6 drinks and one of them is poisoned. It ends with there being 1 drink left and the man drinks it because it's the rules of the game, knowing full well what will happen.
There's nothing to do but just step back and just think about how this is in a game that came out on a Nintendo system in the 90s. A time where Nintendo was doing a lot more censorship than they are now. However, it's not all grim, just a surprising amount.
What you'll be doing between the plot is exploring dungeons, and here is where you'll hear comparisons to Zelda. The game does play similar to Link to the Past, but not to the extent that I'd say it's a clone. The dungeons in this game rely more on exploring and fighting and changing between characters for their unique abilities, which for the most part is just switching to Will when you need to play the flute and playing as whatever the knight's name is for the rest of the time.
I'm sure his name is important to the lore, but I don't know.
You do get more abilities later on, but I feel that the dungeons don't really utilize everything you can do. Looking back on it, most of the game's puzzles amount to use item on X, or kill everything which opens up the way, which you'll be doing anyway because if you kill all the enemies in an area, then you get an upgrade to your attack, health, or defense.
Now this never bothered me too much, but yeah, like outside of the maybe 1 or 2 will spots in each dungeon, I'd never touch it. And when I would have to use them, I'd then just immediately backtrack to the nearest save point and switch characters.
And there are a few puzzles I remember sticking out to me because of how not great they are, like the one where you're told to use your tackle ability on the damaged wall or something along those lines, and when you enter the room there's no indication as to where the fake wall could be. I found it because to do the attack you need to hold the attack button, which lets out an attack, and I was standing in the right spot to hit the fake wall and have it make a different noise. And the next one was when you play the flute on a tiled floor and one of the tiles lights up, so you stand on it and nothing happens. Because nothing happened, I figured I missed an item or something because why else would it light up unless it was supposed to be a clue, but if so, for what? Turns out I didn't stand on it for 10 seconds, an amount of time that you'd think something was wrong and get off the tile if you didn't know what to do.
These aren't too bad, they just kind of annoyed me.
However, the main problem I had with the game is the fact that there is no map. You can get a map of where all the enemies are, but you can't see where doors or parts are. This wasn't that bad until the last couple of levels, specifically the jungle level made of walkways with dead ends and items used at some of those dead ends. I got lost a few times and a map would have helped, more so for the next dungeon, but you get the idea.
Now I know I said that there's no map, but here's the thing. Back in the day, in PAL B territories, they released special edition of games for the Super Nintendo and giving them the big box treatment like Earthbound and Super Metroid got. However, here's the thing. They were only PAL B territories, so even though I do have the big box version of this game, it's all in German. All the game text and all the box text. Pretty sure that's German. Yeah, that's German. So yeah, this is a cool special edition, but here's the thing. Since it's all in German, the fact that this does have a strategy guide doesn't really help me. Now, you might be thinking, well, if it's just maps, then can't you just look at the pictures? Well, here's the thing. The maps in this game, as a whole, really, are segmented maps, because you just kind of go from screen to screen to screen, which is how you can clear the maps out easily. And so, going through this, the maps are also displayed as being segmented. And so, since I wouldn't be able to understand the language in this manual, or strategy guide, I wouldn't be able to understand the markers saying this is where these parts of the map connect. I would if I kind of put some time into it, but I kind of figured, well, since this only came out in places like Germany and such, actually I'm not too sure if it came out anywhere other than Germany, because Germany is the only version of this game I've seen, or this version I've seen, I would feel that it's not really fair for me to play through it, because it would just be the same as me looking up a guide online. And so I wouldn't really be getting the same experience that people had back in the day, which is kind of unfortunate because this guide looks pretty cool. I don't actually know if it's actually helpful in any way. Because it does have some art in here and some what looks like helpful tips. And it would have been cool to have this back in the day. But, yeah, it never came out here. And really, that's a shame, because, like I said, it's pretty cool. But, even without that, the game is still fun. It does have a few kind of bits, but they weren't too major. Like, I still had fun overall with the game, because it plays great, feels great, and the level designs, well, dungeon designs, are pretty good. Like, they're nothing amazing or spectacular, but they're still fun to explore. And with that, I give this game a 3 out of 4, a recommendation. It's not the highest of recommendations, but if you have a Super Nintendo and you find a copy of this game, I'd recommend picking it up, or even ordering online. Because, yeah, it shouldn't be at the top of your list, but it's still a very enjoyable game. And with that, I've been Horror Show, and this is VG Therapy.